Okay, so the first thing when we're sketching cubics is to think about what shape they're going to be. So I know that if I'm going to sketch a cubic graph, that if x cubed is positive, so I've got a positive x cubed term, then my graph is going to be that shape. And if the x cubed term is negative, then I know that it's going to be that shape. So let's look at this one that we've been given to draw. Thinking about multiplying this out, can you see that when I multiply out these three brackets to draw this graph, I'm going to get a positive x cubed. It's going to be my first term. So my graph is going to be this shape. It's going to go up, down, up. If I want to see what that's going to look like or where it's going to cross the axes, you can see here that it's most of the time crossing in three places, and that is when y equals 0. So if we look up here and say what happens when this y is 0, well then either this bracket, x minus 1, will be 0. That will give me a value that x equals 1. This bracket, x plus 2, will be 0, which will give me x is minus 2. Or x plus 3 will be 0, which will give me x equals minus 3. So those are the 3 points that this graph is going to cross the axes. So if I draw a quick sketch of this graph, it's going to cross at minus 2, minus 3, and 1. So that's 1, minus 2, minus 3. And the other thing we need to do is find this crossing point. So that crossing point is when x is 0. So if you go back to your original, you look back at what your original was, it was y equals, it was x minus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3. And if you imagine putting in that x is 0 into each of those, well, this first bracket of x is 0 would be minus 1, times that bracket would become 2, times that bracket would be a 3. So minus 1 times 2 is minus 2, times by 3 is minus 6. So this point has a coordinate of minus 6. Okay, if we want to sketch this graph, if we think about this as three brackets, x plus 1 squared means it's x plus 1, x plus 1, x minus 1. So first of all, when I multiply this out, I'm going to get a positive x cubed, so I know my graph is going to be that shape. Then I know that where it crosses the axes are when y is 0. So if x plus 1 is 0, x is minus 1. If x plus 1 is 0, x is minus 1. And if x minus 1 is 0, x is 1. And you'll see here we get the same answer twice, and that's called a repeated root. So the same root happens twice. And what that does to your graph is that it means it doesn't cross at that point, it just touches the axes at that point. So for this graph, it's going to touch the axes at minus 1, but it's going to cross at 1. So if we think about our shape, we know it's this shape here, it's going to go up, just touch at minus 1, go back down, and cross through at 1. And again, if we want to find this point where it crosses the y-axis, we say, well, what would happen when x is 0? So if x was 0, the first bracket would become 1, times the second bracket would be 1, and the third bracket would be minus 1. 1 times minus 1, that crosses at the point minus 1.